one thing I noticed from the women's international was that the young, predominantly young, shouting crowd weren't in any way put off by the fact that it was a very one-sided game. The more England scored, the more they cheered. And, Wales clearly created a couple of overlaps that just didn't have the execution to finish them off.
Yeah.
And it would have been nice if they could have at least scored.
I'm smiling because
to reward their effort, because there was a hell of a lot of effort there. But
I was pretty busy on Saturday, but I sat down, I was having a bit of lunch and watched 5 minutes of the England-Wales game. And it was the sort of tail end of the first half, and I must admit, I thought I'd shouted at the TV, I think 3 or 4 times before I turned it off, in frustration, because Wales just were unable to catch a ball and score. They literally
created the overlaps.
They had the overlap. Obviously, they got the advantage of having an England player in the sin bin. All they had to do was really catch and dive over, and they failed on 2 occasions. I thought,
I wonder if that's
my lunch over.
Is it the union mindset? I don't know, because they have to rewire their brains. And the problem we've got is, and it's an obvious problem, England's women are at a level that no other team in the Northern Hemisphere is at. Their main rivals are Australia and New Zealand. They're down there. We haven't got no money. We can't fly them over, or anyone else. So we have to do with what we've got. But Wales and France will only improve. Yeah, Wales and France will only improve if they play England. And Cardiff Demons being a regular fixture in their division and playing in the Challenge Cup can only help. They're talking about an Origin series for the women. Now, whether you extend that to... I wouldn't put Wales in there, because if you have Wales versus Yorkshire and Yorkshire win 50-0, that looks terrible. But if you have Yorkshire versus Cardiff Demons or something, or call them South Wales or something that isn't the Welsh nationality...
Celtic Crusaders.
They will steal that, because that's not being used at the minute, is it? So call them something else, have a tri-series, have a quad series, have Cumbria, whatever, just Wales need to play games as well against a team that are not quite England, but not... So I don't know, but something's going to happen, so that's good.
You've got to persevere. Because if you look at where... I think Christian Wolff made this point during the week. If you look at where Tonga were maybe 6 years ago, so the fact that they are now the first Tier 2 nation touring and playing a Tier 1 nation, that's a hell of an advance. So we can criticise the fact that they haven't been as good as perhaps we thought they might have been, because they did so well in the 2017 World Cup and then in 2019. But they haven't done it over here yet, because they're not used to playing in conditions and rules and stadiums over here. They have to bring all their best players to be at their best. But the more they play, the more they're going to reach that threshold. And, we're the same with... You say, who else are England going to play in the Northern Hemisphere? Well, how are we going to get up to the level of the Gillaroos and Kiwi Ferns?
Absolutely,
yeah. It has to be a pyramid system where you're always playing somebody slightly better than yourself, so that you know the benchmark. You have to. Wales have taken a lot out of this. I saw the social media of Tom Brindle's speech to the women when they were on the field afterwards, saying it's fine margins. It might have blown out a bit at the end, but there's a lot of what we're doing is exactly where we need to be. The fact that they could play 2 games in 2 weeks against 2 nations that are higher than them in the rankings, their first ever proper trip abroad, not counting Ireland, and to come back from that where they've had a very creditable result, to then play against the best team in this part of the world. And rugby league is a cruel game. You can make 5 great tackles in a set 6 and concede on the last one. They're moving in the right direction. There's a lot of buy-in amongst the Welsh players. Some of them are very naive when it comes to the nous of the sport, but they're absolutely passionate about the shirt.
15 of the 18 Welsh born.
I was just going to say that, have they explored the grandparent rule?
I assume they have. Well, they must have, because we had Georgie Taylor on last week. So,
Well, I listened to some of that.
I guess it's... that can go one of 2 ways again, can't it?
But also, they were missing their best player in Bethan Davidson. Clearly, she's the one that a lot of them look up to. She plays in Super League at a level whereby she's winning Player of the Match awards every other week. She just wasn't quite fit, having got injured in the French game, to play at Headingley, which would have been on her home ground. You need those players.
Yeah, and by the way, England are far from the finished product.
No, absolutely.
The short time I watched the game, England were obviously down to 12, but they still packed a full scrum. well, come on, that's naive in the extreme. And then at the next scrum, they were almost told you don't need to pack everybody. And then there was a whole kerfuffle about who was in the scrum and who wasn't. Then they didn't have a defending scrum half, and it just seemed chaotic, as though nobody was really out there on the pitch controlling that and being switched on to what was happening. Caitlin Beavers shot out the line, which should have resulted in a try to Wales, quite honestly. So there was some mistakes in there in that performance, despite the fact they went on and what was it, 16-0 it finished.
But the other thing about Wales not having Bethan Dainton is England had Georgia Roach, who's just come off winning an NRLW Grand Final. Is clearly playing at a level probably even higher than some of her other England colleagues, which is no disrespect to them, but to be successful in the NRLW, you've got to be something really, really special. So, it's all about getting your best players out there as often as you can, wearing that shirt, being proud to wear it. And the more that Wales play and get those kind of players, then they've already proved they can be competitive with France. If we could get to almost a tri-nations between England, Wales and France in the women, where the standard was going up all the time, England can use it as well to blood some of their younger players, which again can only give them greater depth when they need it. They're going over to play the Gillaroos and the Kiwi Ferns. It's great.
I think Wales lost was it the captain with a concussion as well early on? I mean, you were there, so I don't know why I'm asking you.
I was.
Oh, you were there. I can't remember if you were
I was there
in the shop there.
I
can't remember where you were.
Two jobs at the same time.
I think it was their captain that lost with concussion.
Yes, Shawnee Davis.
Yeah, so that's obviously.
So just come back from 2 years out. She's another great story. So I just think we can overanalyse the action, but the fact is, having this 2 or 3 week period of almost constant international rugby league has been really good for the sport.
I also think it's right that we are able to be critical of what we see on the field in the women's game, because we don't want to fall into the trap of going everything's great and everything's this and that and the other, because if you're not critical, then you're lying to the audience.
Well, I'm sure the coaching staff will be having those conversations. That one, a couple of things that I mentioned there in the space of a few minutes to watch the game. They will be having those conversations with the players for sure. But I think you're right. That's from my point of view. I think sometimes you can end up being cheerleaders if you're not too careful. And I want to support, and I think it's right to support the women's game. But equally, it should be done with some positive.
But I also think that the
constructive criticism.
The women's game is going to improve, because now we know that York are starting to pay their players.
12 of them now. 12.
You'd be annoyed if you weren't in that 12.
We've got to have somebody for Richie Milo as well. I've got to mention him in a bit.
And the Super League is going to improve in standard.
And it has improved. There's no doubt about that. It's improved over the last few years.
And I do think there is a plan at some point to bring London and Cardiff into it. So that's going to help the Welsh. So there'll be more people playing in Super League who are eligible to play for Wales and Scotland and Ireland. So
it's going to take time. It's going to take a number of years.
Shall I say something controversial? I'll say something controversial now. This is top 3 Women's Super League next year in this order, right? Number 1, York. Number 2, Leeds.
It's not that controversial at the moment.
Number 3, Wigan.
So you're predicting that St Helens will not be the powerhouse that they've been?
Well, Shauna Hoyle has officially signed for Leeds. Who'd have thunk it?
Has she?
Yeah, they've just announced it.
Surely.
Surely they must have run it by you first.
I didn't know when they were going to announce it. I think you'll find it might have been in there.
Might be the first of many going from St Helens to other teams, but we'll see on there. What was I going to say about?
You've gone early there. We're still in 2023.
Well, it doesn't matter. I don't want to upset Kelty Generals anymore. She's on the telly. She might be able to get some work.
Is that what we're doing next week? Predictions for 24 season.
There can't be many more moves, can there? But I'm not going to make a prediction about the men's Super. I said probably went Saints this year or something. Paul says St Helens again. Well, Paul, I will probably be wrong, because I usually am.